You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687. 687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie, and I'm proud of the life I have, surrounded by military and aware just how big the world really is. I have a unique perspective on life and the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for Point of View. Alright, how y'all doing out there tonight? Yes, I miss you when we're not talking. And for those of you who survived my Holocaust rant yesterday, you will not be subject to another Holocaust rant today. In fact, I've got newly minted title for Justin Kinney. Yes, Justin is joining me tonight, and he is now contributor. I think we'd passed guest a while ago, and I just forgot to tell him he needs a new title. How you doing tonight, Justin?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
Doing great as always, darling. So, okay. First of all, before we get to the Kurds, big news event that you couldn't have missed unless you were probably living in North Korea, and even then the government didn't miss it, the State of the Union. There were a couple of really interesting moments there that related to North Korea.
Yeah, there were. I mean, obviously, State of the Union is a lot of domestic stuff, but Trump went outside the realm of that and went into some foreign policy, and he had a really interesting moment with a former North Korean member who, I guess he was a refugee of some sort, who was in the crowd, and I found it very moving and very, very interesting. Probably the most moving moment of the night was when he stood up and everybody cheered for him.
Right. I've actually got those audio clips queued up if you want me to play them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's play it.
In 1996, Sung Ho was a starving boy in North Korea. One day he tried to steal coal from a railroad car to barter for a few scraps of food. In the process, he passed out on the train tracks, exhausted from hunger. He woke up as a train ran over his limbs. He then endured multiple amputations without anything to dull the pain or the hurt. His brother and sister gave what little food they had to help him recover and ate dirt themselves, permanently stunting their own growth. Later, he was tortured by North Korean authorities after returning from a brief visit to China. His tormentors wanted to know if he'd met any Christians. He had, and he resolved after that to be free.
That was the first part of it, but that was a very moving moment, and I've got to do I'll play the second part, because now I don't think the audience clapping and cheering was in there, but the rafters certainly were lifted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great story overall.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's such an emotional story.
Sung Ho traveled thousands of miles on crutches all across China and Southeast Asia to freedom. Most of his family followed. His father was caught trying to escape and was tortured to death. Today he lives in Seoul, where he rescues other defectors and broadcasts into North Korea what the regime fears most, the truth.
And I have to do a minor soapbox moment. Someone on Twitter, and I'm not going to call them out by username because quite frankly I don't have it in front of me, was actually saying that the story was probably fake news. And it was probably all manufactured. And there was probably no truth to it. Justin, this is too much North Korea. This is classic North Korea, or am I missing something?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't have all the details on this specific individual, but the story itself rings very true to something North Korea not only would do, but has done many times in the past. It has all the hallmarks of a true story. Again, I can't prove it myself, but it certainly rings very true to me anyway.
And North Korea does torture people who try and defect. That is not fake by any stretch. That is known
we know that for a fact. And if you go on, a different part of Trump's speech too, he mentions another person who was tortured by the North Korean regime, and Otto Warmbier, too, which again we know happened. So this story is not like it's way out of the realm of possibility. It has a lot of hallmarks of things that we know North Korea does. Makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. I'm sorry, but this story is classic North Korea in my book.
Yeah.
And when I saw that on social media, someone wanted to disparage it just because, and their whole reason for calling it fake news, peed me off. It was because Trump had said it, not someone else. Now, I have heard rumors, and this is being backed up by some very quiet movings. Remember that bloody nose strike we mentioned a while back on North Korea? Well, we'll do a targeted military attack. Well, they've gotten rid of the ambassador that was blocked, that didn't want to see that. Which brings some credence to the fact that the bloody nose strike may actually come to pass. Now, I don't think they're going to do anything before the Olympics. But if it comes to pass, it's going to be one of those very interesting moments, because I don't think North Korea could not retaliate.
No, although you mentioning the Olympics has kind of brought up an interesting thing. I saw just recently that North Korea is planning another one of their missile parades to take place the day before the Olympics start. I don't know if you saw this.
Propaganda parade.
Oh yeah, and they'll showcase dozens upon dozens of their rockets and their long range missiles and those sorts of things. But it's being done literally one day before the Winter Olympics begins in South Korea, and the idea obviously here is to try to scare the U.S. I think there's actually a quote in there somewhere, they want to scare the hell out of the Americans. But this is another propaganda push by the Kim family.
Exactly. I mean, North Korea is the king of propaganda. Now, I also had heard that they canceled a pre-Olympic concert. North Korea canceled it. It was supposed to be a joint concert.
No, I had not seen that.
And North Korea did it because the news media in South Korea wasn't towing the party line, essentially.
It's supposed to be a joint concert between the two
Yes. And basically, North Korea decided to take their toys and go home. And it was even going to be held in North Korea.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, and the North canceled it basically because a lot of the South Korean people don't approve of the way Moon is handling the Olympics. His popularity has nosedived.
Really?
Like 12 points in a week.
Wow, that's pretty steep.
I said nosedive. And I've heard
Off a cliff.
actually from my husband who's stationed there that the locals are calling it the Pyongyang Olympics instead of the Pyeongchang Olympics.
Huh. Really?
Yes. So, yeah, it goes to show that politics are politics the world around. But I think Moon may be pushing his country too far.
Well, he's been known to want to be very involved in kind of the diplomatic side of dealing with North Korea. We talked about this on a show previously, but it's part of the reason he and Trump have kind of butted heads, over the past year, is they kind of disagree on how to handle North Korea, and Moon, for his side, is all about the diplomacy and let's sit down and talk, and Trump is a lot more on kind of the sanction side of things. So maybe Moon is pushing this a little far. I don't know.
I don't know either, but I can definitely say that his citizenry isn't exactly thrilled.
Well, I mean, his counterpart on the other side of the border too, in North Korea, I mean, he's wildly unpredictable. He's not someone that you can really count on, even if you do have a diplomatic sit down. And I think that's something that I don't know. Maybe Moon is a little naive on that count. The Kim family, not just him, but his father and grandfather, have a history of sitting down, making deals, not only with South Korea, but with the United States, and then backing out of them. I mean, this has happened repeatedly over the last 50 years or so.
Right. I mean, and it's not just like it's the first time they've backed out of something. This is a recurring theme. And I don't see why we should listen to anything North Korea says because, no offense, I think they got their playbook from the masters, which would be Iran.
Yeah, I mean, we've had multiple deals with them, particularly over the nuclear agreements, and every single one of them they've backed out of. It's happened multiple times. I like you. I kind of have a hard time trusting that any sort of diplomatic agreement that is reached with South Korea will result in any sort of long-term peace either. I have a hard time trusting that the Kim family will ever stick to an agreement like that.
Now, do you think they'll play ball long enough to get through the Olympics, or do you think they'll trash the Olympics on the world stage with the world watching?
I think they'll play nice long enough. I mean, this isn't the first time they've sent people to the Olympics. I think this is a chance for them to try to make nice with the world almost.
Exactly.
And so I don't see them trying anything serious during the Olympics or at the Olympics. This is their opportunity to have a little bit of face time with the rest of the world and try to show, hey, we're not what America tries to make us out to be. And so I think they'll play nice, at least during the course of that. But once the Olympics are over, I don't see a whole lot of evidence that it's going to stay rosy. I assume they're just going to go right back to the tensions that they had before.
Exactly. I think it's going to be one of those things of they'll play ball long enough to get through the Winter Games. Once the Winter Games is over, it's open season.
And the other thing too, I mean, the Winter Games is all sports and athletes, which is all about showing off strength and power.
Right. So
I think
they have no reason not to want to.
Right. I mean, they want to show off their strength and power. And they've done it at the Summer Olympics many times. They frequently win medals. Well, not frequently, but they have won quite a few medals in the past on things like wrestling and judo and some of the events that exemplify strength. And specifically, it wouldn't surprise me to see them come out and try to win a few medals and demonstrate their strength in these Olympic Games either. And again, that's if they tried something during the Olympics, that would take so much of the focus away from what they're trying to gain out of being there. I just don't see them doing anything until afterwards.
Jim in the chat room was just commenting that North Korea is sending 400 people, but only a handful of athletes, and this is true.
Yeah, I want to say that they're only sending like 20 some odd athletes. I forget the exact number. It's very, very low, but they're sending essentially cheerleaders. Obviously, you have trainers and things like that too, but they're also sending I want to say like a dance group of some kind.
Yes, they're sending a girl band that was hand-selected and handcrafted, quote-unquote, by Kim Jong-un. They're sending, they were sending musicians for a concert, which of the more classical variety, which may or may not happen. The pre-Olympic concert has been canceled. They've even sent people to inspect the venues to make sure they're up to North Korean standards, and at that, I had to laugh.
Yeah, I can't imagine what North Korean standards are. But that does raise a big question. If they're sending 400 people and only 20 some of them are athletes, that's like what, a little over 5% of their entire delegation as athletes competing. Propaganda. It does raise some questions about the other 375 or so.
I'm also willing to bet that they're going to be using this to attempt to spy to some extent. But of course, they do that all the time anyway.
I mean, from their perspective, they'd be fools not to try something. So I think South Korea will be on high alert, watching these people to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing at all times.
That's true. Now, North Korea isn't the only country in the news. And I'm sure you've looked at this at least a little bit. Turkey and the Kurds.
Mm-hmm.
The Kurds are the largest people without a homeland. And they seem to be the ones constantly taking the brunt of the attack. Now, Turkey says all Kurds are terrorists. We say the PKK is terrorist, but the YPG aren't, because most of the YPG are part of the Syrian Defense Force. And a lot of them have helped us kick ISIS in the six. Now, I'm watching the city of Manbij. Yeah, that name's come up a bit. It seems that it's going to be a hotbed, a potential, well, lack of a term, war zone, because Turkey is willing to massacre all 30,000 Kurds if they have to protect their country from quote-unquote terrorists. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit about the Kurds on here before. You just mentioned this is the largest ethnic group in the world. It doesn't have their own homeland. I want to say they have a total population of like 30 million around the world. A good chunk of those are in Turkey. I want to say that's probably close to half of their total population is in the region of Turkey. And they have this history of obviously not getting along there, right? And this goes back a long, long time. And they've been fighting on and off pretty much ever since, well, for as long as I can think of right now. And it's kind of been exacerbated in the last few years because of what's happening in Syria. That's actually where Manbij, I think is how you pronounce it, is. It's a city in northern Syria, and there's been some reheightening of these tensions between the Turks and the Kurds because they're both fighting there as part of the Syrian civil war that's obviously, kind of blown up and expanded well beyond that. I haven't been following the specific details of what's happening in Manbij recently. Other than Turkey has basically told the U.S. to get out, and the U.S. has said no, we're not going to. That they're going to stay there. And I think that makes some sense from a U.S. perspective because the Kurds are one of our biggest allies in the entire Middle Eastern region, especially. Well, if you don't count Israel, they probably are our biggest ally in that region. Actually, there's stories. If you go into some Kurdish homes, and particularly in northern Iraq, they have photographs of George W. Bush on their wall because he's the one who rescued them from Saddam. So the Kurds historically have been very friendly to the United States, and so it makes sense that the U.S. would want to help them.
Now I'm sitting here looking at this possible NATO on NATO conflict.
Yeah, it is, especially because Turkey is relatively new to NATO, I believe, and so this could potentially be a pretty big deal if it's conflict between two members who are. I mean, NATO's a defensive military alliance essentially, and so to have two members potentially locking horns or at odds over an issue. That's something to really keep an eye on.
Yes, and it's going to be one of those things of, okay, I pray it doesn't come to an actual armed conflict between the U.S. and Turkey. Because let's just face it, that would be bad news.
It would, yeah.
There's no two ways on that one. But, God forbid it did, who would NATO back? Because under Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all, but when it's NATO on NATO blood, do they just stand back and watch? Or do they pick a side?
I think it's, I hate to speculate too far down this road, but as one example of what happens when two members of an organization go head to head is what happened during the whole Cold War with the U.S. and Russia, right? I mean, the UN essentially was rendered impotent because one way or the other side was going to block everything that they could do as an organization, as an entity. I don't know for sure that's what would happen with NATO, but I think it kind of sets a precedent of letting or of not being able to step in because you have two members kind of fighting each other. Obviously, I really hope it doesn't come to that. I don't want to speculate too far down that road. Because I do kind of doubt it's going to happen. But if it does, these international organizations, institutions, really only have power that's given to them by the states, at least in my opinion. They have a little bit of kind of their own power in and of themselves, but the grand majority of power and influence that they have comes from the states that make it up. And particularly with NATO, the U.S. funds so much of it. If the U.S. is a member of or is a party to it, and there's not a whole lot the UN or the UN that NATO can do about it.
Right.
Just realistically, I mean, there's not much they could do even if they wanted to step in.
Well, I mean, I gotta say, I understand that Turkey's annoyed because we're arming the Kurds. I do understand that this does not play into something they really want to see. But Turkey has been told to back down, not just from the highest levels. In fact, I've got an audio clip on that.
We urge Turkey to exercise restraint in its military actions and rhetoric, ensure that its operations are limited in scope and duration, ensure humanitarian aid continues, and avoid civilian casualties. We want to ensure that Assad's brutal regime cannot return to Afrin, and we will continue working diplomatically to end the Syrian civil war.
I mean, now that was about a week ago from the White House podium with Sarah Sanders, but if that isn't telling Turkey to stop it and sit on their hands.
Yeah, it's certainly a tricky situation. I mean, from a Turkish perspective too, you see one of your fellow NATO members arming a group that you think is an enemy of yours, and so you can understand why they're a little peeved by that. But at the same time, this is a historical conflict between Turks and the Kurds that goes back a long, long way, long before the U.S. ever tried to step in. And the Kurds have historically been a huge ally of the U.S. that have helped us on many, many occasions. So that it's not like this is something out of the blue to them either. And we're not exactly arming them to fight the Turks either. We're arming them to help in Syria and to help against ISIS, Daesh. And so those are the conflicts that they've been aiding us on and working side by side. And obviously it goes back longer than that too with Iraq and several other conflicts too.
Now, I don't have the audio clip in front of me, but the question was asked at an Operation Inherent Resolve press briefing. How are we making sure that the weapons that we're giving to the Kurds that are helping to fight Daesh or ISIS aren't going over to the PKK? And the military says that these weapons are being carefully tracked. That being said, I've seen a lot of the fog of war.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope they are, but the U.S. doesn't exactly have the greatest history when it comes to, giving weapons to groups. We've frequently seen weapons get turned on us, down the road. It happened in Libya. It's happened in Iraq. It's happened in Afghanistan. I mean, the Taliban, a lot of the weapons that they got were because we helped arm them to fight, against the Soviets in the Afghan-Soviet War. And so we don't exactly have a great history of arming people and then not seeing them turned against us. It seems to happen repeatedly. That said, I mean, I do hope they're able to track these and keep a closer eye on them than they have in the past. I get a little frustrated when you see stories of terrorist groups and things using our own weapons against us. It's a little hard to stomach at times, but
I agree.
I certainly hope they're doing a better job this time around.
Well, Justin, you're going to have to stomach a commercial break. Yes, it is time to pay the radio station bills, and we will see you on the other side.
They fight and die for our freedom. No one had to ask them to go without a moment's hesitation. For the red, white, and blue.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
They fight and die for our freedom. No one had to ask them to go without a moment's hesitation. For the red, white, and blue.
All right, thank y'all for hanging in there with us while we paid those radio station bills. Hey, Justin, where'd the dart land on the world map?
Well, we've talked about a couple things off air. I think a good spot to go would be Syria. We're kind of there already. Might as well stick around and talk a little bit more about the chemical gas attack that took place about a week ago.
Oh, yes. Syria killing its own people again. Here we go again.
Yeah. So this took place, I believe it was last week. The U.S. came out and accused the Syrian government of yet another chemical weapons attack using chlorine gas on civilians, the same spot that they hit about 4 years ago.
Would you like to hear what Nikki Haley had to say about this?
I would love to hear that.
When Russia doesn't like the facts.
Oh, wrong Nikki Haley clip. Let's try this one.
Of course, it's no coincidence that this week's chlorine gas attack reportedly happened in the exact place the Assad regime is trying to take over militarily. We know the Assad regime resorts to these brutal tactics when they want to retake territory without any regard for innocent civilians.
They do. There's not much more you can say about it.
I mean, this, as she said in the clip, this is the exact same spot that they had the lethal attack from using sarin gas. It was 4 years ago, I believe, killed, I was like 14 or 1,500 people. It was one of the deadliest chemical weapons attacks ever. And this is in the exact same place. As you said, it's a spot that the Syrian government is trying to take. And essentially, my understanding of it was they launched some rockets into this area that were loaded with the chlorine gas. So when they went off, the chlorine gas flooded the area. I haven't seen numbers of casualties. It doesn't look like the number is anywhere near as high as it was. More, in the 12 to 13 people range that were hurt. So it's clearly not on the same scale. But I mean, still, this is something that Assad is. He's promised many times to never use chemical weapons. He's joined the treaty banning them. He agreed to destroy his chemical arms stockpile at one point, actually a couple points. And yet this appears to be at least another occasion of his government using them against his own people.
Well, and Jim in the chat room was asking, what about U.S.-Russia deconfliction? I'm assuming that means in the areas of Syria and the Euphrates. It's been a rocky path because I keep hearing reports, and obviously I'm only getting one-sided reports. I don't read Russian, but that Russia is violating, we're supposed to be one side of the Euphrates is Russian, the other side of the Euphrates is U.S. as far as, jets in the air. However, from what I've heard, Russia keeps going over that line. And also, what were you going to say, Justin?
Oh, no, go ahead. You can finish.
I was going to say, and also in Sochi, the peace talks, one of the Russian diplomats that was trying to kick things off and give an opening address was basically shouted down.
Yeah, and I wanted to add into that, too, that, just the other day, we had another instance of the Russians flying planes within, feet of U.S. planes in the Black Sea area. I mean, this is a common Russian tactic of display of force, where they fly their plane through like international airspace within, I believe this one was 5 or 6 feet of a U.S. aircraft. I mean, these types of things are wildly unsafe, but it's this idea of communicating strength, communicating resolve, saying that we're not scared, we're not going to back down. And this all plays into the kind of deconfliction stuff that you were talking about, and that Jim asked about in the chat room. These types of interactions between the U.S. and Russia seem to have spiked over the last couple of years.
Are we? I think we're on the verge of another Cold War.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hate to go quite that far, but it's certainly ramped up, and it's going to be something we need to keep a close eye on, I think.
It definitely is. It's one of those things of... It's definitely going to take some careful negotiation and strategies, and I hate to call it another Cold War, especially prematurely, but now Nikki Haley went on record at the UN Security Council to call out Russia in her usual artful way.
And we know that for years, Russia has looked the other way while their Syrian friends use these despicable weapons of war. Russia is complicit in the Assad regime's atrocities. Will the Russian Federation say anything at all today about the suffering caused by Assad's barbaric tactics?
And I did go through the Russian ambassador's statement. I don't have it in front of me. But basically he told the U.S. to stop committing human rights violations, which to me reeks of North Korea. Now, I hate to go back to that beat the dead horse. But Russia and North Korea are trading partners as they are with Syria. Although, I'm sorry, I think Putin's view of Bashar al-Assad is this little creature in the corner chittering, trying to make some noise and not getting anywhere.
I think Putin sees everyone as a pawn that he can use and manipulate. I think that's just how he views international relations and other world leaders in general. He sees himself as this grand chess master who's, utilizing all these pawns on the world. So I think that's how he sees the North Koreans. I think that's how he sees Syria and Assad. I think that's how he sees Iran. He sees them as pieces he can move around on his chessboard.
I would say between his KGB strategy and the normal take on things, that isn't far from truth.
Yeah. To bring it back a little bit to the idea of the Cold War, I'm not sure Russia has the capabilities right now to push something that far. I mean, if you look at it, they're still kind of in a little bit of a recovery, post first Cold War, hopefully the only one, where it took them a long time to build back. And don't get me wrong, they have gained tremendously under Putin. His leadership has resulted in wild gains economically and in terms of their overall strength and power. But they're still, at least from my perspective, I don't see them quite on the same level as really being able to challenge the U.S. yet. But they certainly think they're getting close with some of these, flybys and some of the other, these, I don't know the right word is there, but they're signals to try to demonstrate strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Russia is trying to push the envelope, and I've reported on the air many times where Russia aviators have flown in what an aviator friend of mine called unprofessionally and dangerous, just to pull off these shows of strength, which I actually think makes them look weaker. Because if you've got to resort to unprofessional actions, what's going on? And then, of course, there's the proxy war between Yemen, Iran, and Saudi.
Mm-hmm.
Playing out in Yemen. It's the proxy war between Iran and Saudi. And it's no secret that Iran is supplying the Houthi rebels. I mean, Nikki Haley has made the case on that on multiple occasions. I don't have anything pulled up. I'm sure I could find it if I took a minute to look for it. And as far as verifying the chemical weapons in Syria, that's not going to happen. Because strictly, Syria has shut down the joint investigative measure that the UN was using to conduct the investigations. And Russia said, well, no one's asked us for a real investigation. Wouldn't that be tantamount to allowing the fox to investigate the henhouse?
Yeah, it's interesting because you look like the original treaty that Syria signed that promised never to use chemical weapons and banned them. And there was a deal that was brokered by the U.S. and Russia. Russia was a party to that, but they have repeatedly kind of stepped in the way and tried to block investigations into whether or not they're actually, using them. And the Russians, just this most recent attack, this chemical weapons attack that we mentioned as an example. The Russians called our accusations baseless. They don't think that we have any real evidence for it, but they're blocking our ability to get that evidence, despite being one of the members of the original deal with Assad.
And Nikki Haley spoke to that as well on the floor of the UN Security Council.
When Russia doesn't like the facts, they try and distract the conversation. That's because the facts come back over and over again to the truth Russia wants to hide, that the Assad regime continues to use chemical weapons against its own people.
And I mean how much they're so involved in Syria I don't see how they could not know whether Assad's using chemical weapons or not. I don't see how it could go unnoticed.
It would certainly be difficult. I mean, you mentioned the joint investigative mechanism. That was a panel designed to look into this, and Russia, I mean, straight up vetoed it. The renewal of the panel anyway. He claimed it was biased, and he's totally blocked this gym investigation. I mean, I don't know how much more evidence you need that they're at least partially complicit in it.
I think even if they aren't complicit, they're aware, they know what's going on, and they're looking the other way.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they could not. Do you think Russia's trying to start a propaganda war?
What do you mean?
Are they trying to play, North Korea plays propaganda games all the time. Is Russia trying to craft the world opinion to their favor by shutting down things like the joint investigative measure, calling the attacks baseless, saying we have no reason to sanction Iran?
Sure. I mean, I think. Let's back up. I think every country does this to an extent. They try to play things and spin it to make themselves look good. I think all countries do that. But I do think Russia is playing this game a little bit. I would imagine Putin sees himself as above such games, like Kim Jong-un is playing in North Korea, at least so overtly. But I think he prefers more to kind of throw his weight around a little bit. He's a veto member of the UN. He can block things at will. He's got a lot more power than the Kims ever have in North Korea, and so I think he's a little more interested in using his weight and his influence there than he is in playing small propaganda games. But I mean, Russia certainly engages in these sorts of things. They have, even going back to the Soviet Union days, the ideology war between capitalism, democracy on one side and socialism on the other. There were huge propaganda elements to that, and I think he would certainly try to take advantage of those sorts of things if he can. It's a little hard to pinpoint when he's doing them and when he's not, but at the very least, he's using his weight as a symbol of strength or a signal to the rest of the world that he's willing and able to do this.
And yes, I am well aware of how tortured political speak can be. Now, on that note, Russia has said that they refuse to back lowering of oil deliveries to North Korea any further, and to do so, cutting off all oil to North Korea would be an act of war, which I think pretty well tells you, official representatives from Russia and Pyongyang have made it clear that a blockade would be interpreted by North Korea as a declaration of war. And that's a pretty serious thing, considering I know that's one of the strategies we've been bantering around. And vessels, let me see if I can find the audio clip on this, but there have been recent violations where cargo was being transferred ship to ship out in the ocean, and South Korea interdicted it. So, one of those, it's definitely one of those, it's a careful, it is a careful game of chess, to use your analogy, that I'm not sure how it's going to end. And I don't think
Putin knows he's got a lot of power. He knows he has this influence, and he's showing it off essentially. And being a veto member of the UN gives him almost carte blanche. In the sense that there's really only 4 countries who can stand up to him. The other veto players, because the others don't have that authority on the international stage. And historically, they haven't been great at it, at least not in the last decade or so.
Right. They've, in the last decade, many of the other players have backed down. And I just don't know how. I mean, okay, Russia is definitely one of the leading world chess players. And I'm just hoping that our government can rise to the occasion because, no offense, when it comes to violating sanctions, Iran wrote the book. There's no other way to put that one.
I'd argue they probably co-wrote it with North Korea, but...
Iran had the first copy because they were on the nuclear path prior, and then I think North Korea helped him play the role of editor. Because
they both kind of mastered that art.
They have. And I want to see a peaceful Olympic Games for the sake of the world.
Yeah, I would think we will. We mentioned earlier, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them not to.
All right, Justin, you had a quick, amusing story about a firearm.
Oh, yeah. So this will just be a quick thing, but we got news earlier today, I believe it was, that one of the original co-founders of Hamas, which is kind of a Palestinian paramilitary terrorist organization. I believe there were 7 original founders, and one of them died Tuesday this week. Kind of an odd, unusual reason. About 3 weeks ago, he was cleaning his gun. Who knows why, but he decides to look down the barrel of it and managed to shoot himself in the face. But again, it was about 3 weeks ago, and he, I guess, has been in the ICU or whatever ever since. But he did eventually pass away yesterday. So one of the original founders of this kind of Gaza-based group, that started there in the probably mid '80s, has died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Okay, I don't know about you, Justin, but I've cleaned any number of firearms. I've never cleaned one that was loaded.
Yeah, clearly he didn't know what he was doing or how he was handling these weapons. I mean, every once in a while you hear stories of this sort of thing, but I mean, it's one of those things you gotta know better, I guess. But this is a guy whose organization he helped found has killed countless people around that region. So you hate to see anybody die, but man, this is about as karmic as you can get.
Oh, I have to agree with you right there. And Justin, it is time for you to let people know where they can hang out with you when you're not on the air, hanging out with me.
Absolutely. I have 2 means of contact you can reach me at. I have a Facebook page. It's actually under my author name because I write mystery novels. On the side, it's J. Robert Kinney. You can find me on Facebook. Also, you can find me on Twitter pretty easily. It's Justin R_Kinney, and I'm hanging out there fairly frequently. So reach me either place.
Yeah, I've seen you on Twitter a little more recently.
Yeah, I've engaged a little bit more on there. Just a little more interested in the things that have been going on recently, I guess.
Yeah, and it hasn't all been Duke basketball.
No, sometimes it is, but it's been a little more political of late.
So, all right. And for those of you who are interested, you can catch me on Twitter at Radio Host Jesse. And you can email me at the station at Jesse's POV at klrnradio.com. And we have the Stafford voice hot on our heels. So I will see you tomorrow night with yet another outstanding guest.